Welcome to Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly radio show about the current state of Ultimate. I'm the host and the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, Ultiworld senior editor Keith Rayner. So much to break down today. AUDL Championship Weekend just took place in Minneapolis. We've also got the Pro Championships coming up over Labor Day weekend. Can't wait for that, and tons of streams coming your way. So if you are ready to watch some elite level Frisbee, this is the last real look before we get to the series. Regionals coming up in a few weeks, and then nationals in about a month and a half. Keith, I hope you had a great weekend. Did you get a chance to tune in to all the AUDL festivities?
I did have the chance to hear your lovely voice and see the studio show and watch along for some of the games and get in our Discord and chat with people. Not necessarily the most incredible slate once we were all said and done, but there were at least some fun takes to be had.
Before we talk AUDL, I just want to note that we also got the 2023 Ultimate Hall of Fame class. Keith and I discussed in a sub bonus the players that we thought that should get in, might get in, shouldn't get in. Ultimately, they named quite a few players, 13 getting added to the Hall of Fame. In the women's division, Allison Walker, Chelsea Putnam, Anessa Janes, Kirsten Unfried, and Nancy Sun get inducted. Kendra Frederick, Kevin Seiler, Mary Burke, and Tyler Grant from the mixed division. And Bo Kittredge, Josh Marquette, John Remicall, and Chase Sparling Beckley in the men's division. I think, Keith, it's clear to say that the very obvious must get in immediately folks did get in. Bo, Chase, maybe to a lesser extent, Nancy's son, and then some of the key development folks in the mixed division over the years, like Kevin Seiler. Any surprises for you?
When we talked a little bit about who we thought might get in, I think there were, after those folks, there were some like, okay, maybe this person will get in on this vote. John Remicall, somebody who had been on the ballot twice and didn't get in. So it's like, okay, well, voters change how they see players over time. They did vote Remicall in this vote, which I guess I was surprised by, just because I kind of assumed that the status quo would hold. I didn't know what might change on that front. So, not any big surprises, but I do think it's interesting to note that players who don't get in earlier tries still have a shot to get in, because we talked about someone like a Ben Wiggins. Would he get in? And the fact that he didn't in this round doesn't preclude him from getting in the future.
Yeah, I think maybe for me, John Hassel not getting in might be the biggest individual surprise. One of the greatest players of all time in Canada, but doesn't get the nod. But it's hard to quibble much here. I mean, I think the fact is that a lot of these players who get on the ballot at this point are going to get in. Like, the fact that they're getting onto this stage of the ballot at all means that they're probably going to get in at some point. And how many people have been left off after being on the ballot for, the maximum number of tries? I don't know that number off the top of my head, but it's probably very low, or maybe even zero. So, someday there will be players who get onto the ballot and voters just don't think we're quite good enough. For me, like John Remicall, not that I'm super familiar with that era, is somebody who feels like a little bit of a surprise, because it felt like, he wasn't necessarily the focal point of the teams that he was on. Great player. You could say the same thing about Cricket, right? Cricket is somebody who maybe gets in because of longevity. He's a great player, but it's not clear that he was ever the best player on his team. But I guess if you're good enough for 20 years playing in the open division, you know what? There's something to be said for being on an elite team, winning titles over time, even if you're never number one and instead you're number 3 to 5.
We'll see if someone like Eileen Murray or Skylar Cisco, if they get in future votes, or Jeff Graham. Those are people who I think you would keep an eye on for later votes in their careers.
All right, well, let's talk AUDL Championship Weekend. New York dominates. They beat Austin 27-17 in the semis, and then they beat the Salt Lake Shred 19-12 it was an absolute defensive masterclass. The D-line was totally unstoppable. I think I overheard an Empire player, and it's kind of hard to confirm this like directly. Their D1 in the final like got a break every time they were on the field. Like they were just unstoppable, and frankly, both lines were getting breaks. But the Austin Soul had no chance whatsoever to play offense against the New York D line. The Shred at least got it going a little bit, but never got comfortable and still got broken multiple times in the second half after going down 8-2 at halftime.
You and I have a long running inside joke with a couple other staff members where like basically, and not that this is an original concept either, basically like as soon as the first team scores, you say like the game is slipping away from the other team. And it felt like that. Salt Lake was, you turn around, they're down 8-2 and you're like, well, this is a wrap. We're done here. And even with their I still don't quite understand what happened in the second quarter where they outscored New York 4-1. The New York offense just like took one off. I think they got a call from the league office. I think the Buffalo Wild Wings call came in and they said like, this guys, we got to have a little more drama for the sake of the children. So
B-Dubs calling them up.
Yeah. It used to be Buffalo Wild Wings and Wax. Shout out to anybody who knows what the heck that means. Anyway, the Empire had as many breaks as their opponent had holds. I mean, what more do you need to know here?
That's crazy. That's crazy. The Empire ultimately going 9 for 14 on break chances. They get 12 blocks in the game. Antoine Davis was a force on the D-line. He ends up with 3 blocks and absolutely put the clamps on Jordan Kerr and in the Austin game on Kyle Henke. So he was tasked with the other team's best player, two of the most productive players in the league, completely took them out of the game and got multiple blocks on both guys. I mean, it was an incredible performance. He ends up getting AUDL MVP for the weekend. And but it wasn't just him. I mean, their whole D-line was phenomenal. And, Jeff Babbitt was a scoring machine coming out to play D-line for the first time pretty much all season, following the concussion issues that he was having coming into the playoffs. So he ends up playing 7 points against Salt Lake. He scores 6 goals and then decleats and chills the rest of the game as they completely massacre Austin.
Yeah, Brent Tan also gets 4 blocks in the final to go with Davis's 3. So those two piling up the blocks. I mean, John Randolph, Marquez Brownlee, they both were really strong for the D-line after the turn. Ben Katz, you get the dross. I mean, it was the entire cavalry showed up for New York, and we talked about how do these teams, maybe these underdogs can like shoot their way into these games. Salt Lake goes 3 for 14 on they go 7 for 11 on Hucks. So even that didn't work. I mean, they probably could have been a little more aggressive, but like even that wasn't going their way. Like even hitting on that wasn't enough to turn the tide. They were just outmatched.
Yeah. So, let's talk about the game of the weekend though, because frankly, the New York games were not interesting. They just weren't. I mean, it was cool in some ways to watch the magnificence of the D-line, but the game of the weekend was obviously Salt Lake, Minnesota, the second semifinal in Minneapolis. They got 2,000 plus fans on hand, and it is a totally crazy game. The lead goes back and forth. There's ties all over the place, and the tension continues to rise throughout the third and fourth quarters, and it looks like finally that Minnesota is going to pull away in this game. They break twice in a row to get to 15-13 early in the fourth quarter. Then they give up a break and it's 15-15, and they give up another break. So it's 3-0 runs for each team. It's 16-15 Salt Lake. And now it looks like the Shredder back in the driver's seat. But then Minnesota holds and answers with a break. to go up 17-16, and there's only 17 seconds left on the clock. And then we get one of the craziest plays that I've seen in AUDL history, where they throw up a prayer at the buzzer. They just got to try to bring it down. But the throw is short. It's not going to make it to the end zone. There's a huge pile of players underneath it. Joel Clutton jumps early, gets way up in the air, and perfectly macks the disc into the end zone, where it is caught by Elijah Jaime, and they tie it up at the buzzer to send it to overtime. At which point, Keith, Minnesota breaks to start overtime, then gets broken, and then blows the final possession with like 35 seconds on the clock, never gets going anywhere, and then just has to send up a prayer of their own, and it doesn't make it to the end zone, and there's no miracle tip, and that's the ball game. Meanwhile, of course, the Minnesota crowd is going absolutely berserk this whole time. The energy was off the charts, but Minnesota somehow let this game get away from them. It was a very entertaining finish.
I love that you're talking so much about the crowd, because they were the MVPs of this game, especially in the beginning. I mean, yes, it was a dramatic game back and forth, but it was bad at points. I mean, there were just stone cold drops. There were multiple turfs in this game, but the crowd energy made those swings still feel entertaining. You know, even though these were like pretty poor execution errors, it still felt exciting to watch because the crowd was so engaged with what was going on and made every moment feel important. So that was big credit to the Minnesota faithful for making that experience better. Really dramatic ending. I mean, the Joel Clutton play is going to be one of the legendary plays of the AUDL history. But you know, it felt like Salt Lake played a really poor game. Minnesota did an awesome job defensively. They had a great defensive game plan. And even though things felt like they were just going Minnesota's way, their lack of offensive firepower just got them in the end. And so even though I don't think Salt Lake really ever played that much better than they did earlier in the game, they just were able to wear down a Minnesota team that just didn't have enough punch on offense.
It did really feel like an even game, though, didn't it? I mean, Minnesota, everybody wrote them off besides the folks in the Central Division. And even here on this podcast, I mean, initially when we saw the lineups, I was like, watch, Central Division teams play great defense and Minnesota's going to hang in the game. And then I watched a bunch of tape and I was like, I don't trust this Minnesota offense at all. They're going to play good D. It's not going to be enough. They're going to lose. Now, ultimately, you could argue that that's what happened. But Minnesota played some of its best offense of the season in the playoffs. It turns out that when you like turn over the keys to the really talented players, you know, you let your Will Brandt have the disc more. Josh Klain being out in the semis was probably a blessing in disguise. Let's be honest. He has a tendency to have too many turnovers. And instead, they bring Tristan Van de Mortel over, and their offense looked legitimately very good at points. It was a bumpy game, though. I mean, it was the slugfest, grindy, Central Division type game that Minnesota needed it to be in order to win. They basically did everything they needed to do. They forced an ugly game. They didn't let Salt Lake get into rhythm. The crowd was behind them. They got the big energy plays from Bevon. Everything was right, except they totally blew it on the final play in regulation. They blew it. All they had to do was keep some people in the end zone. All of their defenders went to the disc, which was not in the end zone, and there is nothing that anyone can do to score on you not in the end zone. I know that sounds obvious, but like it's hard mentally in those situations not to want to go to the disc. But if they had left even one or two defenders in the end zone, they probably picked that tip off, and it's game over, and Minnesota's going to the final, where they would have been eviscerated by the New York Empire just the same. But it was, I think, a very nice showing for a Minnesota team that played its best at the right time.
Oh my God. Can you imagine Minnesota in the final? Instead of 19-12, we get like 14-6. just, oh man, that could have been bad. But that was that. I watched this game and I was like, wow, these teams have just a snowball's chance in hell against New York after what we saw them do to Austin. Yeah, it was this. But it didn't inspire a lot of confidence. Even a successful snake in the grass from Minnesota wasn't enough to inspire a lot of confidence. But at least it was the game of the weekend to watch.
So Keith, we have to talk about something. This was getting discussed quite a bit in the Discord at the championship weekend itself. Is the New York Empire's level of dominance good or bad for the AUDL? We came into this weekend, everybody was picking New York. Everybody expected New York to win easily. New York did win easily, probably easier than anyone expected. They just destroyed these teams. And it's now been 2 straight seasons of them making championship weekend feel a bit uninteresting. Is it great to have a dominant team that's playing some of the best Ultimate we've seen in the league? Or is it a problem that there's no drama?
I wish we had asked our editor to go back and look at what we said when Dallas was doing this back in the day. The dominance of the Empire, I think, is, like, to me, it's personally uninteresting. Like, I think it sucks a lot of the drama out of sports, right? What could happen? I get the idea that people want to see high level Ultimate played, and I think that one of the problems the league has on that front is that I don't know if people consider it to be the highest level Ultimate. So, like, what is it really worth to watch a team play great Ultimate if there's still better Ultimate to be seen in another product? So all in all, I think it's probably slightly to the detriment of the league, but sad to say, I don't think it actually has a huge impact on anything. I think that the pluses probably mostly wash out with the minuses. I think losing on championship weekend is probably a bummer. What their watch numbers look like is probably the defining characteristic there. Are people tuning out or not even turning on the Austin game? Like that, those are the questions that I think matter. And I saw suggestions about salary caps or whatever, and I'm like, you can't institute that. Like, what can you even do to prevent this team from being a dynasty other than trying to beat them? I don't know if there's any mechanics you can even build in for that. So I think that the league's just gonna have to deal with it. Lots of sports leagues have had to deal with this, and I don't know that it's really made any of them unwatchable or uninteresting. So I think you just find a way to make the best out of it, knowing that you have this big time star franchise. But I'll tell you what, every time they win, they're going to be more and more the villains. Everybody's going to be gunning more and more for them and be more and more sick of them winning.
I think the problem is mostly that New York seems to have eyes on constantly getting better. I mean, they upgraded the bottom half of their roster in a huge way in the last offseason. What's going to happen now? I mean, they're probably going to have some guys retire. We might have seen the final games from Matt Stevens. Jeff Babbitt was emotional following the final. Given his, injury history and the concussion symptoms, could we see him hang it up? I mean, he's been essentially playing literal professional Ultimate. Like, this is his career, working for the Empire and playing for the Empire. And maybe he's ready to do something else or move on or, move to another part of the country. The Drosts might hang it up. So you could see them have some attrition from some of the older players on their roster. The thing is, they're going to go out there and they're going to try to sign the best young college players. They're going to try to come up to your AUDL star player on your franchise and give him an offer that's going to be way better than what they can get from their home team. And I think that is where the problem comes in, because what you say is true, Keith. Other leagues have had to deal with this, but other leagues have actual systems in place to prevent one team from just out muscling everybody with money. And they're
like drafts,
drafts and luxury tax. I mean, even baseball, which is notorious for having teams be able to just spend their way to titles. It's a lot harder these days because of the luxury taxes. So I don't know if it's possible to have a salary cap of some kind, but perhaps there should be some way that you do balancing of resources, or you think about it anyway, in order to prevent it from becoming too much of a stacked deck for one team. Because the problem is, I don't see where another team is going to come in and beat them. I mean, DC is losing their star coach. Are they going to be getting better from here? I mean, it's always possible that a team could pick up 2 or 3 really key pieces. But it felt like the Breeze already did that, and they lost worse this year than they did last year. And, to some extent, New York played they had amazing performances, first from their offense during the DC game, and then from their defense at Championship Weekend. But the level of talent is just so much higher than the rest of the league that, it would take them playing like a C game while another team played an A+ game for them to lose. And that's the problem, right? Is that like the odds of those two things combining into one game are like sub 5%. And so it's just a little too much. And I say that with the thought held in my head that people love to watch a dominant team, and that for ratings and for interest in the league, it's better to have a great team than like straight parity. But I think you don't want a team that's too great. You need a foil. You need a Cavaliers for the Warriors.
That definitely, the lack of a credible challenger is a problem, and DC was supposed to be that this year and didn't fulfill their part. It's great. It's wild when you think about it. Like, there's like 3 to 4 other players who could be top end players on this Pony team in New York who are not playing with them. So it's not even. I said Pony. I meant Empire. There are 3 to 4 guys, some of whom are on Pony, who could play with this Empire team and make them that much better. So there's like room for growth. There's room for upside. Scary thought. You love to see Salt Lake taking steps forward. There's a lot of their team is young. I don't think you're going to see a lot of retirements for them. We know that there's opportunities for them to continue to recruit talented players, but this Salt Lake team could be a lot better and still lose to New York. It's that gap that you're talking about that feels like a pain point.
Yeah, and look, I think there's some really promising young rosters in the league. Salt Lake is one of them. You look at the youth on Minnesota. They have a lot of young talent. The Raleigh Flyers have a lot of young talent. Carolina, excuse me. Even to some extent, Austin. And the thing is just like, even if those players mature into better versions of themselves, I just still don't think it's enough right now. Like the New York championship window is open for at least 3 more years, if not 5.
It's hard to imagine it being good for the league if New York wins 7 or 8 straight championships.
I think the question
what matters
is
do they get challenged,
Yeah, and I also think it's possible we're going to see some top players on the Empire decide that they just don't want to run it all back. I mean, are they going to really just want to run it back every year? Or are some of them going to be like, I'm going to go play for my hometown team, or I'm going to move and I don't want to fly in for games or whatever. These things happen.
It's got to be that New York pizza, man. People love it. The bagels, the pizza, everybody's just staying. Why would you leave?
Why would you leave? Okay, we're going to take a break. Well, before we do, Keith, anything else on the AUDL season or on championship weekend?
Well, Charlie, I personally don't have anything, but we do have some questions of the week from the mailbag about the AUDL. So I've got a couple lined up for you coming out of the mailbag. The first one is for a hypothetical line for, I guess, the third place game. I mean, you and I have argued about who the second best team in the league is. You got the runner-up, Salt Lake, and you got the purported second best team, DC. What's the line on a neutral field between DC and Salt Lake?
Well, I'm standing by my take from all season and before this game and after this weekend that DC is the second best team in the league. And so on a neutral field, let's say they played in Minneapolis. For me, it's DC probably -2.5 or maybe -3.5. I think you saw, it's easy to be like, oh, look at DC and how New York dismantled them. Well, yeah. And then New York further dismantled the other teams that they played at championship weekend. I think probably around 3 is the number. And I would expect DC to win.
No argument here. All the evidence. How can you be excited about Salt Lake after what we just saw from this last 2 games? You can't. I mean, going up against a more experienced DC team, I think you got to side with DC. And I think your line is pretty dead on. So we agree on that one. Another one. Okay, let's say Okay, so this question was hypothetically who would Salt Lake need to add to their team in order to be a favorite against the Empire. So let's let's say from other teams in the playoffs or in championship weekend, how many players does Salt Lake got to add to be the favorite against the Empire? Could they even? They took the best players from every other team in the league. Are they the favorite?
I think I answered a mailbag question in my written mailbag about this. I think the Empire are the favorite against an amalgamation team of all of the best players you pick from Salt Lake, Minnesota, and Austin. I think they're still the favorite by like 2 to 3 goals. Assuming that they even, I mean, this assumes they get practice time and game time and that they're a polished team.
Yeah, they need DC and Colorado in there, I feel like, to really, or Atlanta.
Right.
They need a little more talent than what they're getting from those teams. Like, you're getting Brandt and DeClercq and Bevon, and then what, you're talking about Kyle Henke and Evan Swiatek. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to get them there.
All right, so the Shred got 9 holds against New York. They were 9 for 20 on O points. It's not good, but they ran good offense on at least half of those holds, those points. So I think one of the problems was that early in the game, they were not poised. They were not ready for the moment. They looked a little deer in the headlights, and New York played ultra aggressive on the unders and in the reset space, and they just didn't adjust until after the first quarter. At which point, they won the second quarter 4-1. Now, yes, New York let its foot off the gas, but I think Salt Lake showed that they could play good offense. What they were missing was players with experience and that were not going to be afraid of the moment. It's not even that the young players were afraid of the Empire or something like that. I genuinely think they just weren't ready for the level of defensive pressure and weren't ready to adjust to throwing fakes in order to get the reset defender to bite and then getting a little upline pass. When they started doing that, the offense looked pretty good. So I think what they needed was, a couple more Grant Lindsley types on their offensive line. And I don't mean that positionally. I mean that more in the sense of having experience in those big spots. To be honest, though, Grant didn't necessarily play his best. I don't think we saw the best of Grant Lindsley this weekend. But I think they needed players who were going to say in the huddle, like, hey, I got this. Like, I'll come back. I'll handle. Let me help. Let me show you how to make this right, because their super young lineup just wasn't ready for it.
I agree. And I don't know if I think the championship weekend team, just even the all-star team can't take the Empire. If you give me the whole playoffs, then I think you can get enough good players in there.
Okay.
Get that extra experience.
Here's my hypothetical then. Take the entire 2023 AUDL player pool. Empire stays the same. You make the best team you can from the rest of the AUDL player pool. You give them a season to practice and prepare. They play the championship against New York. What's the line?
I mean, I think I take the All-Stars by like minus 3.5.
Okay. I think I would take New York plus 3.5 in that hypothetical.
I get it.
I mean, I really have to, I want to emphasize how impressed I was. The defense was insane this weekend. It was incredible. And the offense after the turn, they were unbelievable this weekend. And I just, I think if you took Empire, you cloned all the Pony players and you put Pony out there against Empire wins that game right now. And that's acknowledging that Chris Kocher and Sam Little and Jimmy Mickle are great players who would easily make the Empire.
Okay, so we got one last mailbag question that touches on what you're talking about. If you split the Empire up into X and Y teams for the entire season, would both sides make it to the postseason?
Yes.
So they're better than Boston. Half of New York is better than Boston, Philly, Toronto.
Absolutely. I mean, it depends on how you split the team, right? If you go straight up, the 28 person roster, right? If you give the best 14 players to team A and the bottom 14 to team B, it would be tough sledding for team B, but I still genuinely think they might make the playoffs.
Well,
if you split
the
it
bottom
evenly,
14.
The bottom 14 on the Empire has multiple players who would start for other teams' O-lines.
That's wild to think
hang
about.
on. Let's do the exercise.
Oh my gosh.
Let's go to let's try to the best of our ability. We don't need to necessarily figure out exactly every person on the roster and whether they would be on the top team or the bottom team. But let's go through. So some players who weren't even rostered for the championship weekend. Zach Burpee, super talented college player. He's on your B team. Oscar Kohut. Let's see. Probably Ethan Fortin is in the bottom half. Jeff Holm, Matt Stevens, Matt Labar, Angelo Olchese, Scott Shue, Ryan Holmes, Shank, probably, Noriaki Toe, Robert Elston, Matthias Ling, and there's still, but then you're still going to get a couple of the starters from championship weekend. Oliver Chartok, maybe.
I don't know. You're not telling me that this team's going to make the postseason. I don't know. They're better than Boston and Philly.
I just named 10 people, so I still get 4 of the primary Empire guys.
Yeah,
on my team.
And let's assume they get a couple more. Both teams get enough bodies, so they end up with 20 people or whatever.
Sure.
They get some replacement level players, but yeah, I'm not sold. I think XY, yes. I think XY you get there, but if you strategically are making 2 teams, but maybe that's what the league needs to enforce next year.
Just force the Empire. The Empire announces its roster, and then they say decreed by the owners by majority vote.
Show
you have to
really
split
an
your
empire.
team in half.
show that you're truly an empire by creating 2 separate kingdoms.
Okay. Is that it for our mailbag questions of the week?
That is. Those are our three AUDL mailbag questions.
All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Pro Championships preview and picks coming your way. Stay with us. Welcome back to Deep Look. This weekend in Milwaukee, we have the Pro Championships. It is the final tournament of the USA Ultimate Club regular season. The sectionals get us started in a week and a half. And this is the chance for basically all the top teams, minus 1 or 2, to get their final tune-up before the postseason. In a lot of ways, this looks like mini nationals. I mean, this is the one. This is the Easterns for club. And so, Keith, we get a chance to see many of the teams that we saw at US Open, plus some of the depth teams and some of the teams that we missed at US Open, like Phoenix in the women's division. Why don't we start there in the women's division? Scandal, the number 1 overall seed. They're playing Brute Squad, Traffic, Phoenix, and Parcha in their pool. Fury headlines Pool B with Molly Brown, Sixers, Riot, and Grit. Top 3 teams in each pool will advance to the bracket, with the 1 seed getting a bye to semis and the 2 and 3 seeds playing a crossover pre-semi/quarter. So Scandal, is Scandal going to keep it going, Keith? I mean, that's one of the big questions I think coming out of the US Open is what we saw there going to continue through as teams have now kind of gotten all their regular season reps in?
I think there's a case to be made either way for Scandal. This Scandal team looked very good at US Open and did so in a way that felt sustainable and also missing some parts. I think that there is room for them to continue to get better as they integrate some of the parts that were missing. Also, some of the players who didn't get to play the full weekend, some of the newer players on the team, they will get better. That I didn't feel like they were peaking early or anything like that. However, I also think that it's pretty unusual for us to see teams take really big leaps forward without really adding star talent. And Cammy Groom obviously it was a big pickup for them, but outside of that, they're having players who are playing great years, but that part feels a little unusual to me, and so we're not used to the script getting flipped in the women's division that often. I think most people, if they were at a gut check moment and they're like, okay, it's semis at nationals, Scandal versus Fury, Scandal versus Molly Brown, who do you got? I think most people are going to sign with the established programs over Scandal, despite the results that we saw at the US Open.
I think it's so funny that you included Molly Brown in that as one of those teams, because until 11 months ago, it would have been the same exact conversation about Molly Brown, right? Oh, we're at the semis. Molly Brown is in the semis. They're playing Fury, and people are going to side with Fury because it's Molly Brown and because they always lose in semis. And I don't even disagree with what you're saying. I just think it goes to show you that, like, if a team gets good and it has good players and they have the right pieces on the roster, they can absolutely win the title, just like Molly Brown did last year. And maybe that's Scandal's situation this year, although I don't think they have as much talent as Molly did a season ago.
And Molly was a team that continued to make semis and then kept adding good players. I mean, they add the Cardenas twins, they were adding good players while being a semis team. So we're seeing Scandal make a bigger leap. Now they do have like the consensus best player in the division. So there's a lot to like about Scandal. I think that they're perfectly credible as a number one, but I don't think that they're really far away from the field going into this tournament.
I think teams are going to make defensive adjustments, and Scandal is going to lose a game this weekend. I'll reveal more with my picks a little bit later. I think the other team that's particularly interesting this weekend, because we haven't really seen them much yet against top teams, is Phoenix. Phoenix comes in as the 7th overall seed. They have a tough schedule on day one. They have to play 4 straight games. They get to bye on Sunday morning in the final round of pool play. So they will play Traffic in the final round to win a game that could ultimately decide who gets into the bracket. This Phoenix team it's compelling. Like, Lindsay Sue is back, a couple years removed from winning a Club Player of the Year award. They have some of the, all these UNC players, these Pleiades players who have been so impressive at the college level, at the PUL level. Erica Birdsong looks like she's ready to make the leap. She just switched from Ozone's roster to Phoenix's. So pretty exciting team. The question is, do they have enough firepower like they did when they made their very impressive semis push? Was that back in 2021 now? 2019?
And they right, this is also a lot of the core of this team just won a Premier Ultimate League Championship with the Radiants when they were kind of counted out after not the most convincing regular season. So, there's a plenty of crossover there across those two rosters. And we've kind of been waiting on Phoenix, right? For years, they felt like the team that looks ready to break through and become an elite program. And they still have a lot of young players at the core of this team who could help shepherd in that next step for this program. But we haven't really seen it yet. And they've been a little inconsistent this year. They play Scandal. This was a while back that they actually played Scandal in the final when they were at Pro League Challenge East, and they got crushed. I mean, they lost 11-6. It was sloppy. So I don't know that I necessarily expect them to play that way again, but we haven't seen them very much. Brute Squad's had some convincing results. Traffic up and down season. So these are not going to be easy games for Phoenix to come in and conquer and suddenly move into the elite ranks of the division. But there's a lot of depth there. I need to be convinced. I need to see some convincing results, not the kind of up and down stuff that we've seen from Phoenix in years past.
I think the other question on my mind, top question is, is Molly Brown going to bounce back? It's not that they played bad at the US Open. They were solid. They lost just once to Brute Squad. The problem is they lost that game to Brute Squad in the bracket and therefore missed getting to the big games. They didn't make semis. And their wins are nothing inspiring. I mean, they beat Flipside, Sixers, Nightlock, and Schwa, all teams you would expect them to beat. So I'm now kind of wondering, I mean, the best thing on their ledger right now is that they beat Fury back at PEC West in July. But if they have another weekend where they lose to the big teams, right? If they lose to Fury soundly in pool play, I'm going to start being worried about this Molly Brown team, Keith.
Yeah, the nature of their loss to Brute Squad is what makes it notable. If they had lost that game 14-13 or whatever, I don't think we would make a big deal out of it. It would probably feel like it said more about Brute Squad than it did about Molly Brown. It's the fact that they weren't even in that game at the end that makes you concerned. They lose 15-11, I think. So, yeah, it's great to see them get a test against Fury in pool play, and I think they're fully capable of winning that game, even though I make Fury out as the favorite coming in.
All right, so anything else on the women's division, Keith, or should we move on?
Yeah, just a couple of quick for the rest of the seeds. I mean, we'll take just a quick jaunt down the bid lane because there are teams that are in the mix, particularly the MA. The Mid Atlantic has Parcha and Grit, who are the last two teams in. So they are the last two teams on the bubble. They need to not get run out of town here. It's going to be hard. The teams here are ranked very highly, but who knows? Keep an eye on consolation play when they do have to go up against potentially each other or Riot or whatnot. Those are the teams to watch as far as the bid watch is concerned. And the first teams out are from the Northeast. So Starling, Iris, then you have Ozone and then Siege also from the Northeast. So those are the teams that stand to gain. Second order effects could play an impact here. I mean, the Northeast has got to be salivating, and they're going to be rooting for Grit and Parcha to get bageled every game out, so they could try and get in. That's what to watch in the women's division. I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of faith that these other teams can quite compete, even though I think we've seen some good things from Sixers and Riot and Traffic at points this year. But I don't think anybody feels like they're really threats to get into semis and potentially knock off a title contender.
Yeah, I think, Grit is the team that is in danger because they are about 50 points clear of, about 40 points clear of Starling. Parcha is like 100 points clear of Starling. So if Grit loses all their games, they're definitely at risk. If they win a game or two, they're probably going to be okay because of just how strong the field is. So definitely going to keep an eye on that. I'm sure we'll be getting updates from frisbeerankings.com every night after games. Okay, let's move on to the mixed division. And AMP is the number 1 overall seed after their win at the US Open. They'll be playing Slow, Noise, Hybrid, and Toro in their pool. BFG is the 2 seed, and they have Exist, Polar Bears, Love Tractor, and Dragon Thrust in their pool. We've definitely seen many of these teams face off already at the US Open, but some absences from some top teams, like Mixtape, for instance, who just won the Fruit Bowl, which sounds like kind of like a whatever tournament, but was actually incredibly competitive because it's in the Northwest, and like all the good teams except BFG were there. It should be pretty interesting. I think that, can AMP keep it going? And it's not like they were perfect at US Open.
Yeah, they had some stumbles, and we're used to AMP having some foibles along their journeys. That's not unusual. You mentioned the field strength here. I think 5 of the top 10 teams are in attendance, but that's kind of classic. Feels like mixed right now because it doesn't really feel like we really have a great sense of who the 10 best teams are. It's possible that all the semifinalists or none of the semifinalists at Nationals are in this field, right? That feels like it's possible. So it's kind of a weird setup, but when you look at this AMP team, I still love the talent. They play a really athletic game. They look like they're developing some depth. But I just have trouble placing my faith in them all the time because it does seem like they're good to lay an egg every tournament. The question is, do they lose when they do it? Sometimes they lay an egg and they win anyway. But sometimes they lay that egg and suddenly they're out in quarters or whatever of a major tournament. It makes me wary of them when I'm looking at my picks, or when it comes time to play the game in a month and change.
Oh, hashtag the game. It's on the horizon. Otherwise, I sort of have a feeling that we're going to get similar to what we saw at US Open, which is that there's a lot of parity this year in the mixed division. You could have a team like Noise make a run or get blown the hell out, which we saw at US Open. Exist, is dealing with a little bit of injury, unluckiness. And, BFG has shown some flashes, but also played poorly at times. Is Slow really deserving of a 3 seed at this tournament? That's kind of a question mark. So
No.
I'm there's a lot of teams I have questions about. I mean, maybe no more so than number 10 Dragon Thrust. When has Dragon Thrust even been close to being the bottom seed at a tournament like Pro Champs or any tournament?
Their bounce back is definitely the thing to watch, and I'm on the side that I think they're going to recover. I think they're going to look like a title contender again after this weekend. I mean, they lose 4 games on double game point at US Open. Yes, they probably shouldn't be in a double game point game against Voltaje. Like we know.
No.
Right.
I don't think so.
That's concerning, but that's a consolation play after losing 3 universe games on the first day of the tournament. I think with a chance to clear their head, right things, they're going to be in a better position. I think the fact that they're losing by 1 to Shame, Ellipsis, and BFG tells you that this is a good team. That doing that in 3 back-to-back games is not light work. So I think I'm big on Dragon Thrust making a bounce back this weekend. Also just feels like narratively appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, what you say is true. I mean, I think you look at their day 1 at US Open. They lose to 2 teams, Shame and BFG, who have proven to be very good. And yes, they lose to Ellipsis, but, Ellipsis was kind of like this wild pickup team that had some really good wins. And yeah, their Sunday results were not as impressive for sure. Losing to Voltaje is bad. But on the other hand, like they were a 1 point away from beating the number 1 ranked team in the country, Shame. They were 1 point away from beating BFG. So I think that, when those games happened initially, it felt like, whoa, they lost to Shame and Ellipsis. What the hell is going on? But it turns out that no, Shame is actually really good. And, Ellipsis was kind of volatile, but also very talented. So I think Dragon's going to be fine. They're definitely going to beat their seed.
We'll talk about it more in the picks as well. I'm looking also at the bid watch. It's kind of a weird situation because you have Noise, who has this 4-game sample on their record. So they're highly volatile according to frisbeerankings.com, but they're also the only team from the North Central that's really in the mix. So they're almost irrelevant. You have Toro, who's 1 spot out. They're in the field. They're the bottom seed in Pool A. But the team above Noise that they would potentially knock out is Shine from the Southeast. So no net gain in that for you. So Polar Bears also in the field. They're the 3rd team in. So the Southwest Polar Bears has not been super impressive this year. I was high on them coming into the season. The results have not really been there for them. They could fall out and the Southwest could end up as a 1 bid region. That is possible with Toro in the field. So keep your eye out too on these matchups, especially if we end up in consolation situation. Although, these are which by the way, we'll have some of those consolation matchups on the live stream for our subscribers on Field Pass. Those could decide bids. You could have bids on the line. I think that because of the parity that we've seen, like really feels like there's a lot of opportunity for these teams, but also there's some outcomes that are pretty poor.
Since you mentioned the live streams, let's take our moment here to talk about the broadcasting schedule. Overall, you should know there will be showcase games during every day on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. The semifinals and the finals will be streamed, of course, all of them. So the 3 of the semis will be on ESPN Plus, as will the finals. So you'll have to have an ESPN Plus subscription to watch those. But the other 3 semifinals will be available to UltiWorld standard and all access subscribers, as well as those who get the event pack for the Pro Championships. But I think the bigger news is that we've got Field Pass coming back for the first time this club season, at the first time since College Nationals, Keith. And we're going to have 4 games around on Field Pass throughout the pool play on Saturday. And then the pre-semis will have Field Pass, and we'll bring it back after semifinals for consolation games on Monday morning during the finals. So again, that will be the main Field Pass broadcast will be available to standard and all access subscribers. The individual game ISOs with no commentary will only be available for all access subscribers and event pack purchasers. Keith, any particular games you're excited about?
Oh, come on, Charlie. There's
you could literally name almost any game from this tournament.
Yeah, find me a game I'm not excited about is a better question. Personally, I've been thinking about this Revolver team in the men's division. We'll talk more about them, I think, when we get over there. But we've got Revolver Bravo in the morning. Tough for our West Coast audience, but Bravo has been a streaky team, but we know that they're capable of delivering some of the highest level play in the division. And Revolver's a team that I just don't feel like I have a great feel for. They're this young team. They're playing an exciting brand of Ultimate. So I think this is a very intriguing matchup for me. And that's just from round one, and that's already like one of my most excited matchups. Most exciting matchups for me on the slate. But obviously, Fury Molly Brown to cap off the day is pretty good too.
All right, well, let's go to the men's division and talk about what's going on over there. Pony is the 1 seed coming off their win at the US Open. They will be playing Revolver, Chain Lightning, Johnny Bravo, and Vault in their pool. Truck Stop leads up Pool B with Machine, Ring of Fire, Rhino Slam, and Double Wide. I am very intrigued by Pool B. I think we could see some very surprising results, upsets. Is it possible that there's no team that goes undefeated? It wouldn't shock me. You've got some bounce back candidates in Rhino. You've got a team we haven't really seen much yet in Double Wide. Ring feels like a little bit of an unknown too. And then Machine and Truck have looked great so far this season. So I'm looking forward to it.
Hard to know what to make of those bottom teams, in particular Rhino, who just seems like they have so much talent, but has a pretty paltry resume for where they are in the season. So it's kind of like feels a little like now or never for them, right? It's pretty hard to go through your whole regular season without any great results and suddenly turn on at regionals. So I think we need to see this team come out and get some wins, really challenge the top teams in their pool. But I feel like they need to be in this bracket in order to feel like we can have any faith in them once we get deeper into the postseason. But like you said, interesting pool. Truck and Machine could be the two best teams there if Pony's not bringing a full roster. That's an interesting spot to be in.
Yeah, Pony's roster definitely not at its best. Players are missing for weddings, for personal trips. Just can't
AUDL
make the trip
Championship
for whatever
parade.
reason. Yeah, they're doing the ticker tape parade in Times Square. I don't know if they told you that, but they will not be at full strength. They won't be that close to full strength, to be honest. And so I have to say, I would be surprised if they won. I would go so far as to say, Keith, if they win, I'm going to be pretty concerned about what it means for the rest of the field. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know the full extent of who's going to be out, but I know Ben Yacht won't be there. I think there's at least 4 or 5 starters who are not going to be there. So
no wonder they recruited all these extra all-stars. They just needed to have enough that guys could go to weddings or whatever, so that they would still be starred during the summer. But that's going to make Pony a big question mark. If you take off some of the top players on Pony, are they suddenly the third best team in the pool? Are they missing the bracket altogether? Could that have an impact on the rankings? I think men's is probably the least fluid set of rankings. I don't think there's really much to discuss from a bid watch standpoint at this tournament. So probably not going to matter. But Pony could end up with losses. Did you go with their RDU loss from earlier in the year? But wow, they're really going for the regular season doesn't matter shtick, huh?
Yeah, I mean, they've done what they needed to do at the US Open, and they're not going to lose all their games. They might even make semis, Keith. They're still really good. They still have lots of great players. It's just they're not going to have the same depth of talent, and they're going to be missing guys in the lineup that I think it's kind of a bad situation for Pony, to be perfectly honest. I mean, they haven't had their Empire guys fully integrated yet. Number one. Number two, their offense clearly needed work, and they were a little unpolished. Now, they still won the US Open, but you have to get better between the US Open and Nationals. You have no chance to win the title. And so they're missing guys who are going to be starters for their lines, and they need the reps, but they're not going to be getting the reps because they don't have their full lineups there. I'm a little concerned about what that could mean for Pony. If we get to the end of the season and they lose a close game in semis because they, were a little unpolished on their offense, I think we could look back at this regular season and say they weren't focused enough, even though they had the most talent. Now they may be able to overcome that, much as they did at the US Open, by simply just being so talented, more so than other teams. But it does matter that you get comfortable with your lineups.
Yeah, but what stinks to me, from a narrative standpoint, is that basically all we can learn is that Pony's way better than everybody else. That's the only outcome that tells us anything, right? Like, if Pony is a mid-level team at this tournament and they go out and lose to Chain, what does that tell us about Chain? We don't really know. If Pony goes out and beats everybody anyway, then we know Pony's way better than everybody else. So like, that's the only thing I feel like I could really glean from this, and that's unfortunate, because I think Pool A is super intriguing otherwise. We've just seen Chain have a great run. They really could have won that final against Dig at PC, but couldn't pull it off, or at Elite Select, excuse me. Bravo, like I said, the high points for them have been really high. They've just had a couple of lulls at key moments at the US Open. And this Revolver team has been putting up good results all year. So I think this is a really interesting pool. And I don't think that a Pony team that's not focused is a lock to make it because their pool's good.
I agree. I completely agree. John Stubbs in action this weekend for Chain. Something I'm going to be excited to watch. I'm curious to see if Bravo can start to find a little more consistency in its offense. We've seen some good moments from them, but they've been very, very inconsistent.
Quinn Finer Pony campaign.
The high ceiling. Oh, there we go. The high ceiling of Machine also has me intrigued. Obviously Joe White was a force at the US Open. Nate Goff was very impressive. Malik Auger-Sama was like one of my big wow moments from the US Open. I mean, he has integrated so quickly. He was a real key offensive piece for them. He had 11 goals, 3 assists, and just 2 turnovers. I'm curious to see if they continue to take steps forward. They only lost to Pony at US Open. So if they went out and they won this tournament, beat a team like Truck to win this tournament, that would show me that this Machine team really means business this season and could absolutely win a title.
Plus put a little bookmark on this, put a pin on this. They on the roster for this weekend is Connor McHale, the British star, coming over to join the team. So I don't know if he's really going to get to run with them, but that would be potentially illuminating. He looked very good at the World Ultimate Club Championships. And this team has some guys who are making, Henry Goldenberg, I thought was impressive at US Open. We saw that huge layout block on Jimmy Mickle by Jace Bruner. So there's some firepower on this Machine team. I like them as a sneaky team to contend for a title.
All right. Well, it's time to get to our picks. Why don't we start in the men's division since we're already here? Keith, I will let you decide whether you want to go first or second.
I'll go first here.
All right.
I'll kick us off. All right. I'm gonna go with Denver Johnny Bravo, and then I'll also take Machine. I'll take Truck, and I'll take the shell of Pony, the skeleton crew to squeak in there.
I have very different picks from you.
Love it.
I'm going Truck and Machine with a high degree of confidence.
Fair.
And then definitely less confidence, but I'm going to go with Ring for another team out of that pool, and then Revolver.
I really thought about Revolver. I really thought about him. I think when I'm thinking about the teams that are going to make the bracket initially, I have Revolver. So I have Bravo, Revolver, and Pony making it. And then I also have the same teams that you do. So I have Machine, Truck, and Ring.
I have Revolver winning Pool A. I think Revolver's going to beat Pony and win Pool A.
I have Bravo winning Pool A. So
we're
seeing some similar lines, but
it really shows you the level of uncertainty of this club season that we have such varying picks. Not common. We tend to have very similar picks.
I would not be surprised if our picks are the same from here, though.
I have Truck and Machine in the final, and I got Truck winning it all.
I'm on the same boat. Although I will say, if I'm calling my shot here, I'm going with Machine wins the pool play game, and then Truck wins the final.
Oh, I like that. You definitely get to come and gloat if you get that right.
That's where I'm at.
Okay, let's go to the mixed division. I'm going with AMP. So here, before I say this, I'm going with the all caps teams. I'm going AMP, BFG, Exist, and Noise. The 4 teams in the field that have all caps team names. And
all caps when you spell the man's name. Okay.
So that's my 4. I feel, again, like AMP and BFG, I feel strongly that they're gonna win those pools and they're gonna get the bye and be into semis, no problem. Exist and Noise, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, which Noise are we gonna get? Is Exist gonna live up to the potential that I think that they have? I don't know that they quite have yet this season.
Yeah, I also am like a little infirm on Exist. So I actually have 3. I have 3 all caps teams too. I've got Noise, AMP, BFG, and then I've got Dragon. I said I believed in them making the resurgence. I wouldn't be surprised if they win Pool B.
Wow!
But I think I'm going to take them to finish second in Pool B. So yeah, I've got those 4. This is no longer a noise hating podcast, I guess.
That's no, yeah. I mean, I think they're going to make semis and then they're going to get crushed. That's what I think.
Okay, never mind. I take it back.
So I have. Well, who do you have for finalists in the winner?
All right, let's keep it going. I've got Dragon with the upset over AMP. So Dragon's making it to the final. I've got Dragon against BFG in the final, and I've got BFG getting this one after missing out on one
Keith,
on US Open.
I just want to remind you that Dragon Thrust lost to Voltaje at US Open. Are you sure you want to do what you're doing right now?
Look, you were talking about Mixtape as a title contender. Look at who they've lost to this year.
I will be truly shocked if Dragon makes the final. But I love the pick. I'm going AMP and BFG, and I've got BFG upsetting AMP to win this tournament.
You think they figured some stuff out from last time?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh man, we both have BFG. That feels wrong. All the craziness that could happen here. We both have BFG.
Who are your women's semis teams?
I have Scandal, Fury, Brute, Molly Brown. It's not pretty, but it'll work. I really toyed with the idea of Phoenix. I thought a lot about what I think Phoenix could do in pool play, because I don't like them to beat the loser of the Molly Brown Fury game if they finish 3rd in their pool. So I think that it kind of behooves them to finish 2nd or higher, but I think that's a lot to ask. So ultimately I went with Scandal, Fury, Brute, and Molly.
I'm right there with you. I've got Scandal, Fury, Brute, and Molly. I think the top teams look like they're separated. I mean, Phoenix is the big question mark. How will they do? Could they get an upset in pre-semis, for instance? But I'm going with Fury over Brute Squad in semis. Fury had some ownage on Brute Squad at US Open. I've got Molly bouncing back with the upset over Scandal. I like the matchup for Molly. I think the athleticism that Molly Brown brings to the table is going to be a good fit against Scandal. And I think teams are going to have scouted and schemed for Scandal a little bit better after how they played at US Open. So I'm calling the Molly bounce back, but I also have them losing to Fury. Fury's going to win this tournament.
Identical to my picks, Charlie. Identical across the board. Yes.
Wow, I'm surprised by that.
I also have Molly beating Scandal to reach the final and then losing to
all
Fury.
Of your Scandal hype, and you're gonna get off the train at the end of the station here.
Look, losing a game to Molly Brown does not take you out of title contention. I still think they'll be in the mix, but I have a hard time imagining them being the number 1 seed at nationals. That's just hard for me to see.
That is something that we didn't really discuss today, but that is on the line too. Number 1 overall seed. I mean, like Pony, if they screw it up this weekend, like they could end up regretting it big time.
Are you sure the number 1 overall seed is on the line? Because the top 3 teams in the rankings in the mixed division are not at this tournament, which are Shame, Space Force, and Crocs, just as we all expected coming into the season.
I can't believe that Space Force and Crocs are 2 and 3. Let's see where things end up after this weekend. It turns out that the game, the like throwaway games teams play in June and July, they still count.
Is Pony going to be a 2 seed in some nationals pool? I mean, they're not even the number one ranked team coming into this tournament.
I don't think so. It depends on who they lose to this weekend.
How mad would you be if you showed
Give me the other top teams right now. Give me the other top teams. Who's
according
number one?
to FrisbeeRankings.com, the order is Truck, Pony, Revolver, Machine, Dig, Chain. That's your top 6.
I mean, yeah, if Pony goes out there and loses to Revolver and Chain.
Because they'll have lost to Revolver and Chain, or potentially could lose to Revolver and Chain, the 2 teams that we just talked about.
End up as the 6 seed or something.
Can you imagine?
It's definitely possible, Keith.
I
assume that they're the 2 seed or the number 2 team in the country right now only because of that RDU game. Like, obviously, their US Open results would have them at number 1. And I think if the season ended today, they would get the 1 seed. The ranking committee is not going to put Truck ahead of Pony. It's not happening.
Yeah, that RDU game cost them a lot of points. Although not the only one. They also only beat Phantom 13-9. So that's not good either.
I mean, but this is what I'm talking about. These teams are playing these clown show games early in the season that count just the same.
silly season out there.
I think they got to do something about it. I don't know.
Is
a lot of sense.
Is there any chance you could see a team outside of Phoenix coming up from in the women's division and busting into semis?
Basically, no. I mean, maybe Traffic if I squint, but Traffic lost to Sixers at Canadian. Like, Sixers is good, but I just don't think they're good enough. I think they lose to those top 4 teams every time. They're just not good enough. They just don't have good enough offense. So, no. I think Phoenix is the question mark team where it's like, what is their ceiling? How good are they really? But those the top 4 teams at this tournament are separated from the rest.
That's what it feels like. And maybe Phoenix can bridge the gap. I also think Sixers is the best of the rest. But yeah, I don't know. They gave Fury, they lost by 1 at US Open. But I think they're a good team, but not a great team.
All right. Well, it all goes down this weekend. You can tune in starting Saturday morning. Get yourself an Ultiworld standard or all access subscription. Or if you just want to watch for this weekend, you can get a Pro Championships event pack and tune into all the action, field pass, showcase games. And then you'll have to get an ESPN Plus subscription to watch the finals. And I know people don't want to do it. I know they don't, but I don't know. I get the Disney, Hulu, ESPN combo pack through Verizon somehow. So that's what I do.
I just have that bundle straight up.
You just got that bundle. You pay for the bundle.
Yeah, I mean, I got a toddler, so there's a lot of Disney Plus being watched
fire
these days.
Well, how much is the bundle these days?
We watch it too. My wife likes Hulu a lot. You know,
I use I rock the Hulu. I probably use Hulu and Disney Plus more than I use ESPN Plus.
I probably use ESPN Plus almost exclusively for Ultimate.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, same. Like once in a while, I'll watch a UFC undercard or something on there.
It annoys me to no end that this was the myth of cutting the cord, and now we're all just doing cable over again through the myriad streaming services.
Oh, I can't believe
I still have cords. There's lots of cords. I have tons of cords.
I cut my cable subscription. I was paying $75 a month. Now I subscribe to Netflix, the Hulu Disney Plus bundle, Max, what else?
Apple
even? I don't
TV
know.
Plus.
Apple TV. Oh my God. It's too much.
And they're all raising their prices.
And here's the guarantee.
They're all raising their prices.
The guarantee is that there's going to be some company that finds some deal to bundle them, just like a cable package. And you pay one big subscription for all of it.
And that company is Ultiworld.
It.
With your subscription, you
Standard
also get
all
access
or all access plus, which comes with it's a crazy world out there. If you here's a question, since we're into garbage time in this episode at this point. If you could only have one streaming service, and you can't have Ultiworld, I know that was going to be your number one, but if you could only have one streaming service, which one would you choose?
Of the ones that are paid,
and if you want, I guess if you want an unpaid one, you could have it.
No, so like I mean, if I take Disney Plus, I still can like watch YouTube, right?
Oh, sure, yeah, you could still watch.
Yeah. I guess Disney Plus. If I'm unbundling, I guess right now I would go with Disney Plus. I feel like I get the most use out of that. Even though, like, if it were just me and it wasn't like my family also watching, I might go with like Netflix, which has just such a massive library. Even though it feels like sometimes I wonder, can you watch everything on Netflix, or are they making shows faster than you could watch them? Like, if you tried to watch everything on Netflix, I don't think you could. But yeah, I think for content quality right now, I'd go with Disney Plus. Although Apple TV has great shows, just there's so little. There's just so few things to watch.
Well, the problem is I just feel like there's too many things to watch. So like I'm really only watching one thing at a time. So I don't pay for Netflix right now. I have the free thing through my phone plan somehow, and that's my streaming. And once in a while I subscribe for a month to watch a show on, like, I think we watched Ted Lasso on Apple TV.
That's the move. Is just subscribe when you want to watch something and then unsubscribe. They won't stop you.
But don't do that for Ultiworld. Don't do that for Ultiworld. Subscribe year round.
No, we need your support. We're not like do you think Netflix cares
do you see how much money these companies lose sometimes?
They don't care. All the CEOs are still walking away with millions and billions of dollars. That is not the case for us.
That's true. It's funny. If you run a company into the ground and they fire you as CEO, you get $40 million to leave. All right, well, that's going to do it for this edition of Deep Look. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to be back with you live during the Pro Championships, probably after semis on Sunday, to do a little live Discord Rapid React show on Out the Back. And so make sure you tune in for that. And if things are crazy enough, maybe we'll do another one on Monday. So that is going to do it. For Keith Rayner, I'm Charlie Eisenhood, signing off until next week, right here on Deep Look.